The plateau of Larzac became a ground for a nonviolent social movement in the fall of 1971. This social movement was a reaction to the French government wanting to extend the military base onto local farmers' land. The government claimed the land was not sufficient enough for agricultural results, so it was rightfully theirs. This was not true, because the land was used for sheep farming, even though it was not used for crops. 66,000 people were actively demonstrating peaceful protests. However, many of these people were not actually the farmers. Many of the farmers were just concerned about their particular farm. This led to conflict between the activists and the farmers. However, the local Catholic population became very active in the protests. Many of these members pushed for the campaign to be nonviolent. However, the most prominent action was the march from Larzac to Paris by 18 farmers. They were then met at the gates in Paris by 40,000 protesters. Finally, in 1981, after almost 10 years of fighting the government, it was announced that the military base would not be expanded into Larzac. In this nonviolent campaign, the dynamics in the social movements were rocky at first. As previously stated, many of the farmers did not want to participate in the protests or have a sour reaction to the government. The original protesters were organized by the Department of Federation of Farmers Unions and shared many differences with the farmers. These protesters were seen as very left and disagreed on work discipline and violent tactics with the farmers. Soon, the peasant farmers, as they were called, left the social movement. Once the peasant farmers left, many Catholics joined and pushed for a nonviolent movement. With the use of the nonviolent tactics and sermons, it motivated many of the peasant farmers who were going to be affected by the land and their families to join the movement, 103 families to be exact. These families signed an oath to remain nonviolent and keep their land despite the actions of the government and what they might offer. This led to many peaceful protests and support from across France, as the protesters and farmers were finally united at once. As studied in class, Gandhi led many peaceful protests in India. Alonso de Vasto leaned on Gandhi's idea of adding morals to the movement. Vasto encouraged fasting. This led to the government faced with life and death situations of their people. Soon, with the use of these tactics, as well as civil disobedience, the farmers who thought they were going to appear sour to the government quickly realized that their tactics were actually morally correct, not the government. With the government and military constantly pushing around the farmers, who were innocent landowners, were then able to use this sympathy as they received more support. Gandhi used a similar tactic with the Salt March. With the use of not fighting back violently, he was able to play morally with the emotions of those hitting the protesters. This was then recognized nationally and received more support as well. The key to this movement was the use of nonviolence. Once the Catholics became involved, and the spiritual leader Alonso de Vasto began performing sermons and encouraging civil disobedience and fasting, the campaign became more serious. Vasto's belief and teaching from Gandhi helped him lead the way for the oath of 103 families to take place. This nonviolence changed the minds of farmers who were originally disagreeing with the protesters because they were scared of the reaction of the government. The farmers initially thought they needed to be violent, and after 4 years of protesting, gave up. If the people would have reacted violently, then they would have not been supported nor sympathized with. Being nonviolent gave them support nationally and politically. Many political parties were able to side with the campaign because it was not violent nor morally corrupt. Larzac is just another example of time and practice. Even though it did take 10 years, it showed dedication and commitment. The 103 families renewed their oaths in 1975 to show their resilience. The actions of being nonviolent made them the bigger people. Their support and tactics left the government with no other choice to make. Finally, in 1981, after a new election, it was announced that the military base would not be expanded to Larzac. The protesters and farmers continued onward with a nonviolence mindset. Lonzo Del Vasto continued on as well to practice as a pacifist and to write many books encouraging nonviolence and his success in Larzac.